just wanted to take a minute to discuss an idea that I think a lot of people maybe don't understand as well as they think they do. And I want to start by asking a couple of questions. The first is, how familiar are you with the way the U.S. presidential election is run? And the second is, how much do you know about the Senate and how its members are selected and were initially selected when things were initially set up? Hello and welcome to the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Monday, the 14th of December of 2020. And I'm glad to have everybody along, whether you're coming on Rumble on the podcast or on YouTube. Thank you for joining, and hopefully I will present something that you will actually enjoy seeing today. The subject today, the main subject, is winner take all. That's what we're talking about primarily. And that is with regard to presidential elections and with regard particularly to the Electoral College. I wanted to take just a second before I discuss that to talk about the idea of the senatorial, the way the United States Senate is selected. Okay, and I wanted to say that this was a sort of a example of another thing that I have a problem with, because you're going to find out that I have a problem with the winner take all thing that we do in the presidential election for electors as well in most states. But I wanted to say for the Senate, the idea, the thing that I think a lot of people fail to understand, and that it appears to me people failed to understand quite early on, in fact, is that the Senate was intended to represent not the people of a given state, but the state itself. And as a result, those who were put in positions of senator from a given state, the couple of people from each state, were intended to represent the state and therefore were to be elected by the state houses in the given state of which they were a part, right? So that's the first consideration, okay, that I think is broken. We now do a standard election for those. And it's not that totally takes away the purpose of a bicameral house, but it certainly doesn't help things because the states do not get the kind of representation they ought to get. And let me just point something out. The reason that there were 2 senators per state was that they represented each state, not the people thereof. That's what the House of Representatives was supposed to do. But now let's talk about the idea for just a second of the Electoral College, and particularly of the idea of winner take all. And we're going to use a couple of the graphics that we used also in yesterday's presentation. I'm going to put up first this one that is the Electoral College, or the win by state of each president on the basis of Electoral College. Okay, I'm putting it up now. Now, I want you to notice that each state is distinctly red and distinctly blue. There are this many red votes, there are this many blue votes. It's all red or blue for pretty much every state. There are some states for which that is not the case, but in most instances that is absolutely the case. Okay, I think in this graphic you can see that they're all showing as red or blue. That having been said, now we're going to in a minute here, we're going to put up another graphic, but for now we're going to drop this one and I'm going to talk to you for just a second. The thing about that is, that seems kind of odd when you think about it, when you consider that the electors that are there on a given state are not on a statewide basis, they're on a countywide or whatever district, right? I'm pretty sure it's a district basis. So this other graphic is another one that I used on yesterday, and it shows county by county what a given state's electors look like. Here it is. So let me show you. So this is what it looks like. Okay. And you can see that there are parts, as I said yesterday, of various various states, various states that are red and parts that are blue. Washington State, Oregon for certain, California, even Texas has some blue areas in it toward the border. And this is a very obvious thing looking at this graphic, right? And what this actually indicates is that the electors for any given state don't fall strictly for one candidate or another. They fall for different candidates. But the thing is, at some time in the past, a decision was made, and I'm going to drop this graphic now, and the decision was that instead of, in most states, instead of assuming that the way things were going to work was that the electors for a given state were going to be allotted or apportioned for each candidate in turn, depending on how many electors. So let's say, for example, you had 10 electors in a given state and 4 of them fell to the Democrat and 6 of them fell to the Republican, or even better yet, let's say 4 of them fell to the Democrat, 1 of them fell to an independent of some sort, and the remainder fell to the Republican. So 4 more, whatever it is, 5 more fell to the Republican. It doesn't really matter. The point I'm making here is this is, in my mind, how things should be apportioned. And what it means is the people in those areas, well, I'll explain that in a second. The important thing is this. It means that people are represented in the region in which they live. That's what it means. That's what it comes down to. When you don't do this, when you say, oh, the Republicans won, then in this state in terms of how many electors they got, and then you say all electors fall to the Republicans, it changes the balance in the nation as a whole, okay? So, yeah, Electoral College does sort of need fixed, and it needs to be reset to make it so that what it's doing is picking the 5 Democrats, the 1 independent, and the 4 Republicans in a state with 10 electoral votes, right? Whatever it happens to be. I don't care if it's Democrats who got the greater or Republicans who did, okay? Now, here's the thing that you need to understand. Those regions, those districts, what actually happens is there's some states that will have a bunch more Democrat or a bunch more Republican electors. And it may seem like an odd thing, but that's fine, okay? But what's not fine is to say that because a state had a lot more Republican or Democrat or independent or whatever electors, you just discard the will of the remainder of that state. So what ends up happening is in urban areas, you have a lot of blue thinkers, a lot of people who are Democrats. I'm not judging. That's not the point of what we're saying here. Okay. In rural areas, in suburban areas, you tend to have a lot of red people, a lot of Republicans. That's just how that works. Again, I'm not trying to judge or say anything about any group. Some areas, what will happen is you'll have an individual, and that individual will be an independent, and they'll win that area. They'll win that district. In every case, what ought to happen is each elector should fall to whoever that district voted for. And it might mean you'll hit 270 faster, and it might mean you'll hit 270 slower, but the point overall is that you end up with the people in a given state actually getting their say, so that if you happen to be in Arkansas and you happen to be a Democrat, hey, guess what? Your vote gets counted a little more fully because normally the Republicans win the state of Arkansas as a result of the fact that they win the majority of electors in the state, right? Right now, the Democrats in the state of Arkansas get no representation. I'm sure you'd find that the same sort of thing happens for the state of New York, except in reverse. It falls to the Democrats to get the electors, and it falls to the Republicans to not get them, right, as a result of winner take all. So if New York State has 30 and 15 of them happen to be Democrat, guess what? 30 are Democrat. And a lot of people don't seem to know this. A lot of people seem to be confused about this or misunderstand it. There are states where this is not the case, but I think there's maybe 1 or 2 in the entire country where that's not the case. All right, I wanted to kind of wrap up because it's getting to be the end of my time here. And I wanted to say there are 2 things that I really think need looked at. The first is winner take all in electoral college. I think it needs to go away as a concept. And the second is the election of senators. I think we need to go back to an appointment process. Is either of these likely to happen? I don't think so. And if they don't, I consider that there will continue to be problems, at least with folks feeling somewhat like they're disenfranchised, particularly for those who are in the know about what's actually happening. All right, I wanted to, like I say, go ahead and wrap up. I hope you're having a good day. Today is Monday, the beginning of most people's work weeks. I hope your work week turns out to be a good one. Mine's being a little bit on the interesting side at the moment. That having been said, everything is going well for me as we speak. Weather has dried up a little bit, though it still hasn't warmed up like I'd like it to, but still things are going well. Hope things are going well for you as well, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video is recorded on Monday, December the 14th of 2020. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.